You told me when we were sitting outside that sometimes you need for a moment to look at the sunset and like stop for a second and just realize what was the last 10 years was. So I think I'm realizing slowly, right? Like it's a very weird, feeling. I told it to Mike before, and I used to have investors and advisors and all my 250 people in the company, and I was the most important person in the room. And suddenly, things are changing. First of all, I enjoy this change, and I think it makes me or give me more time to think about like what is next now with Axon and how we can do more things together, like to take this whole spaceship to the next phase. And again, I'm super proud of like myself, my founders, my team, and all the hard work, like, because startup is like ups and downs and downs, and it's not only like happy going up. And you need a very strong team and team effort to be able to climb this mountain with all the forces trying to push you down, and really all the forces trying to push you down. So I think that I think we should be very proud of what we have done, and I think we're leaving a legacy in this world, being the first ever 911 cloud call taking platform, and the only one that really believed in this mission, and the one that really did it. Like what Steve Jobs said, like only the crazy people in this world are like the one to think that they can change the world, are the ones who do. So I think we, in a small way, changed the world of bringing this 911 industry to the cloud, and it's something that I'm very proud of.
I think it's a pretty big change.
It is.
It's a pretty big change.
Is.
It's an important one.
Yeah.
Let's boldly go.
Welcome to the Boldly Go podcast. Today we got a very special guest. So imagine you're on a beach and it's 2014 and someone has just robbed you at knife point, and you call 911, the number that is supposed to be your ultimate lifeline. But you realize, like at that moment, again, this is 2014, that the person on the other end is essentially flying blind. Like they can't see where you are. They can't see what just happened. Like you're fighting sort of a modern battle with like 100-year-old technology. And that's the reality for the guest we have today, Amir Elichai. But Amir is not just anyone. He's a veteran of the Israeli military, IDF's elite military unit, which I know we're going to get into. He also realized, I know we're going to talk about, that the same sort of signals intelligence used to track terrorists and could be used to save a heart attack victim or to help a crime victim who may have just been robbed on the beach. Today, his company, Carbyne, which was acquired by Axon not too long ago, is the global nervous system for emergency response. We're talking about a platform that protects 400 million people and handles 150 million emergency calls per year. And he's been backed by the likes of Peter Thiel, who we've talked about on this podcast before, General David Petraeus. And so today we're going to talk about Amir's story.
You're such a name dropper.
I know. Well, I mean, Amir is an important guy. And we're going to talk a bunch of folks from the 911 community here in the U.S., and we're going to talk about this broken game of telephone. So, Amir, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, but before we get started on your sort of personal journey, your story, we had Michael Chime on, Rick.
Yeah.
Great story. And now Michael and we were looking at how to get into 911, and you evaluated two companies, and you talked about this with Michael Chime. You found two companies you liked. Maybe just to give us a little.
Yeah, we didn't like them. We fell in love with them.
Yeah.
They both fit together like a hand in a glove. What Prepared was doing was a immediately deployable AI agent you could put into any 911 call center. And what these guys were doing at Carbyne was a much deeper layer, replacing the whole 911 call center, moving it to the cloud. And we realized you could go wide and fast with Prepared, and then you could then upgrade those customers to a really integrated experience where they're not managing a bunch of call switches and old computer stuff anymore. So we're really excited.
Well, and you described Michael and Amir as chocolate and peanut butter earlier today, so it's kind of an image.
Who is who?
Yeah, well, I know. So why don't we start with, you're born and raised in Israel, and in Israel you have mandatory military service.
That's
and I know
right.
that's a large part of your story, so maybe we start there.
Absolutely. So let's take a step back. Like I grew up in south to Tel Aviv in a city called Ashdod. Two parents, like amazing working people. My father is the part of the designers of the Iron Dome brain.
Wow.
I'm sure you heard about this system. So
I did not know that. That's incredible.
Yeah, not an entrepreneur, but like an engineer from day one. and been with a company called Elta for like 30 plus years until he retired, and like did some phenomenal things. My mom, she's a physiotherapist. She works with people with disabilities and people with special needs. And like we grew up in a house where propulsion was kind of like the very important thing, like things, take things in the right perception, etc., etc. And I joined the Special Forces, as you said, a unit called Egoz. I did almost 18 months of course to just the training, basically, and anything that you can think of. And I think the military service in Israel, of course, it's mandatory and you cannot choose if you're doing it or not doing it. What you basically can choose is how much you wanted to contribute. If you want to go all the way and join special forces, you need to go through certain tests and physical tests and IQ tests and a lot of things. And we're always joking in Israel that in the United States, the first question someone asks you is where you graduated from. In Israel is what unit you served. And I think the unit that you served in basically tells a lot about you and like your personality and all that. So me and actually my co-founder, Alex Dizengoff, we served in the same unit. Actually, we grew up in the same city. We went to the same high school and we served in the same unit. And I was an officer afterwards. I served almost 5 years. If you think about it, at the age of 18, your freedom is basically taken a little bit. Like you don't have a phone anymore. You cannot do anything with your schedule. There is someone that's telling you what to do, and you need to face with it. And then at the
Wait, they take your phone?
Everything. Like you have nothing, and you cannot speak with your family, and like it's basic things that in these days seems very trivial for us. But when you think about it, like at the age of 19 and a half, I went to officer course. At the age of 20 and a half, 21, I was already like an officer, and I got 30 amazing soldiers, and now you need to train them, and you need to be their kind of role model, and you need to kind of understand how to motivate your subordinates and how to put red lines and a lot of things that I'm using in these days in business life. But this is very unique experience that we have in Israel, and of course afterwards we moved into the actual operations and doing things that like. You put your life at risk and your soldiers at risk and all that. So I think the military service is what shaped it to be who I am today. And the success we had at Carbyne and all that. And I took a lot of the lessons that I learned in the army and brought them into the business world. And I think it's proved itself.
Well, I've always believed that great challenge brings out the best in people, and frankly, there's no country, I think, where the military has had greater challenges than Israel. And just seeing what's happening in the world today, it is just a remarkable set of people and organization up against unbelievable challenges, and just continues to impress. So what an amazing place to get to become a man.
Sometimes like part of the creativity that you see in Israel, it's because of that service. Like at the age of 18, it's like the government is coming and telling you, hey, you have all those resources, you have to be creative, you have to win no matter what. And I remember when I got my first funding into Carbyne, and I asked the investor like why they invested in me, and he said like I saw a person that I knew that he have his North Star and he wants to get there. And no matter if the door will be closed, he will get from the window. If the window will be closed, he will get from the roof, but he will get to the goal that he set for himself. And when I look backwards, a lot of that came from the service in the army, and like you have a mission and you have to do it no matter what. Here we are today.
Well, I'm still, you got to be incredibly proud of your father. Like the Iron Dome, it's obviously in the news today with what's happening with Iran.
Well, now America's talking about building the Golden Dome. Obviously took some inspiration from that.
That's pretty incredible. That's what's helping protect the country.
And this is also something which, if you think about it, Israel is the only country that is building anti-missiles, systems to protect itself. And I'm not sure if I'm aware of any other countries that build something like the Iron Dome. Now it seems obvious and everybody wants it, but in the time it's like, if someone will shoot a rocket into the United States, the day after, like this country will be wiped out from the map. But in Israel, we are literally like throughout my entire childhood, like it was pretty obvious that people are shooting rockets and we have to find something to protect ourselves. And then you have the Iron Dome and then Arrow 1, Arrow 2, Arrow 3, and like so many different systems. and it's proven in these days that like it's saving lives. But it's you know, unfortunately or fortunately, you know, this is the situation we have in Israel, and because of that, I think great technologies and great kind of innovation is coming out of this country.
Well, I certainly hope, you know, I'm not a fan of war and killing and all that. And I thought we were at the end of war. I got that wrong when I wrote my book, but I'm very hopeful after seeing the horrors of the last few years with Russia and Ukraine and October 7th in Israel. I sure hope, and I feel like the world may change. You know, if we can't have a terrorist regime sitting on the world's, you know, one of their largest pockets of oil. And I hope that maybe Israel won't have to live under such pressure after this.
We all hope. And I think like this is, it's not a message to the listeners, but like the people in Israel wants to celebrate life, wants to live in peace, wants like to do business, wants to collaborate with other countries, want to welcome people to visit our country. And like, I did not choose to go into the army. It was not like something that I can choose whether or not I'm going to do it. It's a mandatory service. But I hope that we are in the kind of edge of like new beginning for this world. And
amen.
You know,
Well, I do have to ask, just out of curiosity, you know, you hear so much in what the Israeli military, the level of innovation and just grit. How active were things when you were in the military? Like, were there a lot of active, frankly, combat operations going on?
Yeah, since October 7, obviously, this is like the level of combat and like face-to-face fightings and all that, like went to different levels. Like, you know, Israel never been into like 3 years of war. Like the principle of a war in Israel were always fast, strong, and beyond the enemy lines. If you look at all the wars in Israel history, it was always like fast, strong, and beyond the enemy lines. Beside October 7, they surprised us. They crossed the borders. They got into Israel. And we kind of find ourselves in a 2.5 years war in Gaza, because the goals for this war was to eliminate Hamas, demilitarize like the entire Gaza Strip, which is kind of realistic goals to you know, it's like you cannot kill an idea. It's very hard, and like it's not realistic to take every weapon from Gaza. It's just impossible to do it. And then of course like Lebanon and Syria and in the Houthis in like in the Yemen and then Iran and all that. And you know, so this was since October 7th. When I was in the army, it was much more kind of a surgical operations. So we would be the one that surprised the other side. We would go and do special things, cross the borders and do things in Lebanon, in Syria, in Gaza. It will be more kind of eliminating potential threats. And so it's totally different kind of way of, you know, kind of a surgery to take something out of like the like threatening Israel,
Right.
versus October 7th. This was like something that we were not ready for. And then we got into this never ending war. So it's like not like since October 7th, but like very active for sure.
Right. And I mean, you've talked about before, and I'm sure we'll talk about as we go through the podcast, sort of lessons learned, and you mentioned already the leadership lessons, how that's influenced how you think about things today. But the Israeli army is also and Israel is also known for like technological innovation. Like, how did you think about that back when you were in the army? Did you think that you may go off and start a company, just curious how you were thinking about that as a young soldier?
The answer is absolutely not. Like, again, I did not think first of all, when you're in the army, you're in the army. Like it's not that you can take advisory board seat in the like your free time and do like investment, you know, on the side. First of all, you don't have money, and the second thing is you don't have time. So like you cannot do basically anything else. But again, I think the army is giving you the lens of like the possible things that you can do and how much power you have in yourself and with your team, and what is like a very united team means that basically you can win anything, right? And you leave the army after 5 years. I immediately started like a course in this kind of a secret service, and I moved to the United States. And I came to the States and I started to work in the secret service for Israel. And then I remember myself like coming with my laptop in my back to New York City after like 3-4 months before being in the army and like, this crazy life that I had before, and looking at those buildings with my computer and like started to interact with people, with business people. And I immediately realized that like what I'm good at, and I'm good with people. I can motivate people to do things that I want them to do. I can negotiate well, I can, again, like I'm a people person. And I realized that this is what I want to do. So I remember 10 months after being worked for the Secret Service, I told my manager at the time, I said, this is not for me.
But the Israeli Secret Service.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you had no business aspirations when you came to the US?
No. I said like, I had a girlfriend. We want to live in the United States for a little bit. And we said like, she was American. And we said, let's do it. So I joined the Israeli kind of Secret Service, and like we got this position in New York.
And what does the Israeli Secret Service do?
So at the time we did like all things related to security of like kind of a bodyguards for the ambassadors to the UN and like those kind of
like
things.
the U.S. Secret Service.
And then I moved to like some other parts of the 3-letter agencies as well.
Yeah, stuff that you can't talk about.
Not really. And
Israeli.
Israeli. Yeah. And anyway, I'm coming here and I'm seeing all these people, and I'm going with the ambassador to meet very interesting people. And I said, like, this is what I want to do. I want to do business. And after 10 months, I'm coming to the ambassador to the UN at the time. Her name was Professor Gabriela Shalev. And I'm telling her, that's it. I want to live. She said, what are you talking about? No one is leaving after 10 months. This amazing job. You live in New York. You have an apartment. So this is not for me. I'm bored. I want to do something else. And she's saying, okay, stay for another 6 months. A good friend of mine, just like he's running the only private university in Israel called IDC. I will introduce you to him. And why don't you go and start like law school and business school? This will be a great kind of foundation to what you want to do. I said, great. But in the meantime, I have to do something else as well. So I've started a company called Sky Project. And the goal was to help young entrepreneurs to raise money from people in the United States. So it was kind of pre-LinkedIn. And I wanted to kind of connect people and help them to raise money.
So what year is this roughly?
2007.
Oh man.
Yeah.
And you're older than I thought.
Yeah, I'm 40.
Yeah, you're aging well.
Yeah. And I said, like, this is what I want to do. So I started, like, I remember I took all my money, and which was not too much at the time, and I built a website. It was not easy as it is in these days. I had to find a designer and developer and all that, but I did it. And I created kind of a social network to help people to, on the one hand, log in and share their ideas. On the other hand, investors will come in and say, this is how much we want to invest, and this is like the criteria. And I started to make these kind of matches. And again, it was pre-LinkedIn. It was like super innovative at the time. And it became one of the largest deal flow sources for Israeli investors in Israel. And we became very, very successful. So when I came back and I started law school, this was my business. I was running this platform, and it's evolved, and we started to invest in cybersecurity businesses. And I just had the opportunity and privilege to sit down and listen to people pitching stuff and learn a lot about technologies until the moment I said, that's it. I want to start something because I'm helping people to be successful.
Right.
But I want to do it myself. And then Sky Project became Sky Holdings, and it was like a holding company, small holding company, because we had a lot of equity in multiple different businesses. And one of the ideas I had is like, I will incubate ideas. I will help them to raise money. I will bring CEOs, and I will help them to grow. And one of the ideas was Carbyne, that came as of like event that I've experienced.
Right.
Which you started.
Yeah. And before we get to the event, though, I mean, you had no experience.
Yeah.
Raising money.
Absolutely.
I mean, no experience in terms of deal flows and finding.
Well, wait a minute. No, he ran a deal flow engine. What do you mean, no experience?
But I'm just saying, like, no.
The guy was like the godfather of raising money. He's helping everybody else raise money.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. But you just went into this business before, I know this. You're going to tell me is the confidence you had to come out of the IDF, but like.
Yeah, and I think so. First of all, you're absolutely right. I had zero experience raising money or zero experience in tech, but like. Sometimes you just jumped into the water and you hope you will survive. And I remember when we did the first deal, I thought, to myself, it was Facebook at the time, what I will write as a post, about this first deal. I could say great news, the first deal we closed, this is amazing. I said, another deal closed with Sky Project. And people say, oh, this platform is already like closing another deal. It's not the first deal. So, those small things that brought some attention. And I remember like at the peak years, we would get like 1,200 startups pitching us and sending decks and all that. It became like a very big kind of a deal flow, source. And we worked with like all the big funds and some of the like the most famous names that like the founders of Wiz. That when they founded Adalom, we met with them and we tried to help raise money there. So a lot of like crazy stories that brought me to eventually start Carbyne and making the decision that like this is what I want to do and I have to be focused on that all in.
One thing I want to point out is I think the greatest entrepreneurs are the first time guys. Because you don't know what you don't know yet. And so you end up doing crazy shit that like if you'd gone and gotten a job first, you'd think, oh, that's too hard. Yeah. So I'm a big fan of first time entrepreneurs.
Well, what was the, sort of craziest investment or craziest founder, CEO that you guys invested in that you remember?
Like the biggest investment we have done was not like that huge, but we've invested in a company called Neutron, which is a cybersecurity company. We brought some investors in Israel to do $8 million investment in this company. It was like pretty high number for a kind of an early stage company.
Sure. I like the name, Neutron.
Yeah, Neutron. And the idea was actually, if you think about it, like most of cybersecurity companies are trying to, understand what is like, good and bad in a computer. And like try to block that based on like, okay, if we see something that is suspicious, let's stop that and all that. And their idea was every computer was designed by humans who basically told this computer that, for example, if you want to delete a file, those are the options that you have to delete a file. The mouse will have to move. Someone needs to click the mouse. The screen needs to be open. You can drag the file into the trash, etc., etc. But if it's not happening like that, if the screen is closed, if the mouse is not moving, something is wrong. So basically, they build a very, very sophisticated operating system for like cybersecurity, and we helped them to raise money. And like the company grew. Another company was TipRanks, and some others that became very successful.
Tell me about being on the beach in 2014.
Oh, this is a story that my wife won't like, but this is the real story.
Is that because you heard it like 100 times?
She was not the one.
My wife doesn't like my stories because she's just heard them ad nauseum.
She was not the one. And
that was funny.
Yeah. It was actually a bit before 2014. 2014, we started the company, but it was like end of 2012 or 2013. And like I was on the beach, I was dating a girl. And I was super romantic at the time. I brought my guitar and like a bottle of wine.
And where was the beach?
In Gordon, in Tel Aviv. Okay. Like not like a dangerous place, obviously, but it was 7 p.m. in the Gordon Beach. It's like pretty dark. And we were sitting there, and me and her, and like I see 3 guys trying to steal bags of a couple that got into the water. So as a good soldier, I'm standing up and I say, hey, what are you doing? And they run away. And few minutes after, they're coming to us. They're all like super drunk, and they're saying, hey, give us money. We want to drink, da-da-da. And you're starting to calculate what you're going to do. And I have some past experience in like Secret Service.
They may have messed with the wrong guy.
But,
I mean, if it was me, I would run the other way.
Yeah, but you are with a girl against 3. So let's say you can jump on 2. Or it's like,
you know what I would have done?
Yeah.
I'd bought him a drink.
Yeah. So again, it's ended up, it was not like a dramatic story. I just gave them money and they left. And then I remember we are going to a friend of mine. We are sitting on a bar, and at the time I did some consultancy for a second stream company, a company that were dealing with rich data collaboration and all that. And I'm thinking to myself, how come that like in the startup nation, when you call to emergency services, like their reaction was so bad. They were asking me, where are you and what's going on?
You're calling from the beach, right?
And calling from the beach, and there is no like location services, and like what the people were wearing. I said, I don't know, like they just left. They said, can you show us? No, I cannot show you because you don't have any capability for me to show you something like that. And anyway, I left, and 15 minutes after, someone is calling me from the police. Hey, where are you? We are here. I said, guys, they're already in a different city. What you're talking about? So it's like I started to think about how can we bring, kind of a 21st century for police. And I started to do some investigation, and I went to sit with the Israeli medical services and the Israeli police. And when we started to pitch our idea of bringing location services and video services, like they were all very excited about it on the one hand, but on the other hand, their system were so old. They could not receive the data that we wanted to provide them. And we said like, okay, we won't be able to integrate now into every legacy on-prem platform in the world. It will never scale. And then I went to the whiteboard and I started to do some, again, Claude and Grok and all those platforms were not existed today. So I basically built my own. I can show you. I still have this presentation. It's ugly like hell, but I built like the entire how it's going to look like, and I started to pitch this idea.
Now, by the way, you were just telling me today you created a new pitch for something pretty exciting that we may or may not talk about.
Yeah.
I assume you used AI to make that pitch.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Which one do you use, by the way? Which one?
I combine between like different ones, but like I use either Claude, Gemini. Yeah, this is like my two favorites.
All right, sorry to get distracted with my passion for making PowerPoint.
Well, I also saw you getting like, Rick is a romantic as well. Like knowing Rick as long as I have, like so when you started telling the story about being on the beach with this girl, it's dark,
sunset,
you had your guitar, Rick was vibing right there. Like he was picturing the whole thing. And then you had to snap him back to reality with these guys walking up because Rick liked the whole vibe that you had going on there.
All right, so you made your deck.
So I made a deck and I started to pitch the ideas and all that. And I met someone that was the head of the Israeli intelligence. His daughter was with me in the university, and I pitched it to them. He said, "Hey, this is a brilliant idea. I would love to join you." And a few months after, I'm meeting with Alex Dizengoff, who ends up to be my co-founder and CTO, and he's telling me that he's developing with another developer and another professor a very sophisticated indoor positioning platform.
Now, by the way, did you already know him from before?
Of course. I knew him from like the age of 13, probably. Mm-hmm. And I said, can you show it to me? He said, of course, let's go to the mall and I will show you. And it's like, you have a platform that can really like tell you where you are to a meter accuracy in a closing area. And I said, Alex, listen, I'm working on something. It's called Carbyne, and I would love you, and let's join forces, because you know that according to the FCC, 10,000 people are dying every year in the United States because police agencies cannot find them. He said, okay, let me look at it. And to make a long story short, we joined forces and we started Carbyne. And then basically what we did, we brought technology, indoor positioning, and some like early mock-ups and capabilities on like what we thought, Carbyne will be. It started as a mobile app. And then we deployed that platform into the Israeli national EMS and to one of the biggest cities in the country.
Yeah. And where'd the name come from?
So it's actually, the company started in a different name called Reporty. And the idea was that Reporty will be like something that you report in emergency. And then I met with Robert Kraft, which is another investor of mine. And I met with him in Foxborough in a stadium.
Wait, the Patriots on
The Patriots, yeah. And he's like, Reporty sounds like a bit childish. If you want to do something which is like national security that would be a global standard, you have to think about different name. And then I said, okay, like how can I find a name? And like I started to look for names, and Carbyne is actually the strongest molecular material in nature. And this is why we named the company Carbyne. Obviously, no one knew what is Carbyne. Like, no one knew what is Google before Google. And then like Carbyne in 911 now, it's a very well-known name. But before that, it was like, what is Carbyne? What are you talking about? So we called it at the beginning Carbyne911.com. Because we wanted people to understand that this is a 911 solution. Eventually, we dropped the 911 that everybody knows Carbyne. But like,
it's super cool name.
It's awesome.
Now,
I didn't know that it was one of the strongest materials. In
well, I also learned Josh Isner, our president, who's been on the podcast, obviously a huge Boston fan, including the Patriots. You had him at Hello's when you told him that story. Obviously, he probably didn't listen.
Yeah, well, when he said Robert Kraft, I was like, oh, the guy who invented macaroni and cheese? Oh, no, not that guy.
But I think it might be worth, so just back up for a second so everyone understands, because many people probably have the same perception that you had when you got robbed on the beach. Like you called 911, like in whatever emergency, and this is around the world, by the way. This is not like happens in the U.S., different numbers around the world. But like you expect like police have all this capability to find out who you are, like where you are, and all this stuff, but they don't. Like maybe just spend a minute just to how antiquated this is in Israel and the U.S. and South America, around the world.
Absolutely. So again, we have to understand that in these days, obviously the tech stack is a bit different, but like we will talk about the tech stack of today and what will be in the future. But when we started, calls were routed based on cell towers. location was never arriving because like there was no location services. In the good case scenario, you would get the location of the cell tower that you were routed through to the 911, which can be a mile radius. And you know, mile radius in New York City, mile radius in Boston or in Tel Aviv can be anywhere. So it's basically no location services. Not to talk about the fact that like text to 911, video to 911, basic information about the citizen calling in, ability to share data between platforms. It was like a big broken phone game that you have a lot of data in the scene, and this data wants to go all the way to the responders, but there are a lot of integrations and on-prem solution that is killing all this data. And like from tons of data in the scene, all what you need in the scene, the responders at the end is getting like, this is the location, go and figure out what's going on there. And we said, we have to fix this thing. Obviously, it's not an easy thing, especially because it's mission critical communication, and you have companies that've been there for like 75 years, and everybody like knows IBM and Motorola and all these big companies.
Well, and you have all this heavy regulation, right?
Yeah.
Because it's mission critical, there's all this well-intended regulation,
Absolutely.
which becomes handcuffs, and that's what makes part of what you've done so impressive. You guys just side ran the whole thing. You didn't try to like integrate through all the old systems. You just replaced the whole thing.
I remember when we came for the first time to the US and we pitched in one of the big conferences, Nina, and we had our roll up. We didn't have money. We had a table with like 2 laptops. And
I remember setting up those booths myself. Yeah.
Yeah, and people are looking at us, Carbyne, which is a car company. What you're doing here? What do you know about 911? If you ever answered 911 calls, I said, no, but we would love to learn from you. Like, tell us what we can do, not what we cannot do, right? Like, and let's work together. And like the story of how we penetrated into the US and how we got our technology to be replacing the biggest players in the space is actually, if you look backwards, it's pretty fascinating. Because in our industry, you need like 3 main things. You need credibility, trust, and relationships. Mm-hmm. Relationships takes time to build, no matter what. There is no shortcuts. You cannot go and do ChatGPT and like get relationship with directors in the United States. So this thing takes time, and you build it. You go to those shows again and again, and it's all will be based on trust and credibility that you build for yourself in a certain industry. And I don't think it's like just for government, but in government it's for sure a crucial thing, because it's like life and death situation, and no one wants to.
And the government can't just like put up a website and people show up and buy stuff. That doesn't happen.
Yeah.
It's trench warfare, right?
Yeah.
And you also don't. It's not like the commercial. It's not like you have millions of customers. Like if you're Google or you're like in the U.S. there's 19,000 law enforcement agencies. I don't know how many PSAPs there are.
I bet Amir does.
Yeah, in the US you have 6,500 911 centers,
So-
and then you have secondaries and all that.
But so your trust and credibility is key, and those are relationships that you develop. If you burn them, like it's a small community.
And one of the first thing that I did is like when I came to the US, I realized we need to build like a strong advisory board. So I brought Michael Chertoff and Kirsten Nielsen, the
DHS.
the DHS secretaries. And we brought like very kind of a tier 1 American investors, and we partnered with Google and with Amazon, and we did a lot of press releases, and we attended all those conferences. And it's like it took time to build, because in government, product market fit is not enough. You need a brand market fit, and the brand market fit, it's something that takes time to build. And this equity that you have in the brand, it's something that there is no shortcuts.
How long did it take to get to your first significant order in the US?
I would say, like we sold our over-the-top platform during COVID, and we can talk about it like.
Well, what is over the top? What do you mean by over the top platform?
So I will explain. Maybe let's take a step back. So Carbyne is basically a mission critical communication platform, right? Today we are like the 911 call taking, the contact center that receives all the data when people are dialing to an emergency service. But when we started and we came to the US, people said, I'm not going to replace my Motorola or with like Intrado or like any other like legacy players with your cloud-based solution where it's working. I don't know, it's not working. So we said, okay, we have to be creative. And we need to build the trust. We'd like show them step by step with incremental value that we can provide them, a little bit like what Prepared did with AI, but with location, with video, with text to 911, with like Responder Connect. And we did it with a platform called Universe. And we launched this program. It was super successful. And we talked about moving to the cloud. And people say, hey guys, cloud will never work for 911. Don't talk about it. Like we want to be able to touch our servers every morning. And this is what we used to. And then COVID hits.
Okay, but quick question there. So when you came in with location and video and all that, you were bringing new capabilities that didn't exist in all the old systems, but then
Absolutely.
you'd sit on top
On top of the legacy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then COVID hits. And I remember getting a call from the director in New Orleans, and he's saying, Amir, we need video services immediately because people are calling us and they're experiencing symptoms because of COVID. And we spoke with like no matter which vendor, and they told us they cannot deliver that because they have to come physically to the center, and we need to have a cloud-based solution. I said, we have one. And then it was like a fire in the wood. People from all over the world, not only in the United States, started to call us. The biggest deployment we did was the state of Maharashtra in India, 140 million people. And they used our platform. We never visited like this place physically, but we delivered everything remotely.
Oh, wow.
And the company grew tremendously. And when COVID started to slow down, people realized the value of cloud, and people wanted to be prepared for the future. And we always said, like, cloud, we're not selling cloud just for the sake of cloud. We want to sell cloud to be able to support the 21st century capabilities. And of course, in these days, it's all a new reality for those centers. And you won't be able to embrace and move fast to AI agents and all what we're all talking about without having a very strong scaled infrastructure that can support the change that you want to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that surprised me getting to know, Carbyne and Prepared and talking to you guys, I didn't know as much about PSAPs, which are public safety answering points.
Right.
Although in Seattle PD, like we were a PSAP, I didn't realize that. I mean, that they're late moving to the cloud. I mean, Rick has talked about evidence.com. We were sort of first there, and police. We don't even have conversations about the cloud anymore. We were rolling out software, but for PSAPs, like it sounds like a different story.
In these days, I must say that like we see the largest agencies in the world moving to cloud. And I think that it's pretty obvious that like cloud is here and cloud is here to stay. And if you want to be like an agency that is ready for the 21st century and all this massive wave of new capabilities coming to market, you will have to be on cloud. We had some discussion in one very big agency in the Middle East, and Rick was with me there. And they're saying, hey, we want to build our data centers. We want to do everything ourselves. I said, like, are you going to invest billions of dollars like the hyperscalers? And this is all what they do, right? And you understand that you will never be able to set up something like this, and you don't have the budget, and it's not realistic to do it, and it's going to take you now 5 years. So you can take off-the-shelf, government-ready, resilient cloud infrastructure and enjoy all those benefits that run as a microservices in those hyperscalers and focus on what you're doing best, which is responding to emergencies, then building data centers and things that you're not understanding in will set to fail. And Ray gave them like some great examples of like big countries, very knowledgeable, that tried and failed to build their own cloud infrastructure.
I mean, this been one of the basic things for innovation is like, don't go rebuild things other people have already figured out.
Yeah.
And so when I was doing some AI research, getting ready for this, Google, Amazon, and Microsoft have spent a combined $2 trillion on R&D and deployment of these cloud centers. And to put a cloud region in place is about a $3 billion proposition to put just all the huge data centers for all the redundancy and all that. And then what customers would tell us, well, we're building our own cloud and we're spending $50 million. And that was, I think, the moment that sort of changed their minds. Like, hey, guys, if the guys who spent $2 trillion so far are going to spend $3 billion to do this for like the 98th time, do you really think you're going to be able to spend 2% of that, build something from scratch you've never built before, that's going to be as good, as reliable as these guys? And that I think was what sort of spun the situation. And this country we were dealing with, like everybody, they're like, we want to be like a leading country in AI. Yeah. And we basically had to tell them, you will fail, which is a hard conversation to have with customer. Somebody's not a customer. It's like, look, guys, your national leader has put this out. If you build this yourself, you're going to spend all your time doing things people have already figured out, and you are not going to be able to deploy AI. And so now we haven't won it yet.
But we will.
Have we?
Well,
okay.
Amir, if you do win it, Rick is going to take credit with his. I saw the AI generated deck that he prepared. He's going to take. It's going to be AI that helped.
Dude,
win.
I was like Steven Spielberg with that deck. That was fun.
It was a good deck. Now, we talked India, but was New Orleans your first big deal here in the U.S.? Then what happens after that? How does
So I remember when I
Well, wait a minute. Tell me about winning New Orleans first. Like,
yeah,
that's got to be.
that's like, so we started with Universe with New Orleans, and we built great relationship with the director. And a few months after, he said, "I'm ready to move with a full platform. I trust you guys. I see what you're doing. I see your customer success. I see how you cares, how serious you are in what you're doing." And I remember the date. It was June 2022 that we scheduled to go live with our first big Apex deployment. Apex is our contact center solution. It's an agency that experienced Hurricane Katrina. They are facing a lot of natural disasters. They were down like 6 days when Katrina hits, and they understand what's the value of taking a laptop and answer calls from a neighboring state and not being physically in New Orleans and still serving the people of New Orleans. So it was a classic kind of a match between two like great entities, great tech company, and great kind of leaders that basically embrace change. And we won this deal, and we've been working very closely with the agency to make sure that we can replace the system that was currently there.
Now, by the way, did you have was anybody running on your cloud platform yet internationally at this point?
We had like two small agencies in the United States, but like very, very small.
And that was
you
it.
cannot even compare. Like New Orleans is doing like 2 million calls a year. It's a pretty big agency, and like very intense. They have the Mardi Gras. They have like hundreds of events a year. They have an NFL city, etc., etc. So it's a big thing for us, and we scheduled the date. And I think one of the biggest wins for Carbyne that is almost never happening in 911, because one thing is to sell, the second thing is to execute and deliver.
Yeah.
And we know both of us and all of us actually great companies that are failing to deliver or failed to deliver in the past, and how it's delay and how it's hurting the credibility and trust. So we set a date and we delivered exactly on the date. And I remember getting a call from someone from Motorola. She's not in Motorola anymore. And she's telling me, "Amir, I don't believe you guys did it on top of AT&T as in the cloud for New Orleans, exactly at the date that you did it. We bet internally that you won't be able to go live." And I was so proud.
Yeah.
And then I thought like day after, I'm just gonna sit down and wait for all the checks to come to me from all the different agencies in the United States. But then the agency said, "Hey, let's see that the SLA that you're saying you're 5 nines. We want to see that it's actually what is happening." You know, they were super kind of cautious and like,
They want
let's
to see.
see.
They want to see what happens.
Yes, exactly. 6 months after, it was amazing. And in 2023, we grew like Apex deployment by 450% in terms of seats. And then like the growth was like triple digits of percentages since then, year over year. Now serving like hundreds of agencies, sold to like Denver, Cobb County, Atlanta, Charleston, and then like again the biggest agencies in the United States, including some federal agencies, and also expanding globally, serving agencies like Medellin, Colombia, which is 18,000 calls a day. It's bigger than NYPD, all cloud-based solution.
Wait, it's bigger than
NYPD.
Wow.
Yeah, in terms of volume of calls.
Is that just the city of Medellin?
Yeah, it's huge.
Wow.
It's huge. So I think we've proven that cloud is here to stay. And again, cloud versus on-prem without any other benefits doesn't mean anything to those agencies. But when you tell them, like when you have a new version in your iPhone and all what you need to do is just to click update and you get the new version, we can give you the same experience for your 911 system. They say, what do you mean? You don't have to come and give us a CD and upgrade. And I said, no. Like we're going to send you the update remotely. You're going to turn on the computer. You click the red dot and you have a new platform. I said, what are you talking about? No one needs to come. I said, no one needs to come. You're going to choose whatever you want to have, and we're going to give it to you remotely. And it's like mind-blowing for them. And then maintenance and security and all the other benefits coming with a cloud-based platform. And again, today, I think it's the standard. We are by far the biggest in the cloud. It's like the second in the industry is like not even close in terms of references and deployments and credibility and trust.
Right.
And now with Axon, it's a whole different story.
Man, I remember our first big customer.
Yeah.
It was Sacramento.
Yeah.
It's a pretty awesome feeling. Yeah. Take us back to the day you got New Orleans. Like, did you know you had it? Or?
Yeah. So you showed today the like Apollo launch and like, the NASA, they're counting back 3, 2, 1. So we're not NASA, but the way that it's working, you're working with AT&T and they're routing traffic to the legacy platform. In 1 second, they click a button and all the traffic move to your platform, and then suddenly the sender starts to ring in your platform, right? And this moment, it can be explosion, like SpaceX, you know,
Yeah,
10 years ago, or it's going to be amazing success. And you're literally like, we basically do like Zoom calls and we bring in all the offices all around the world, investors, board members, everybody watching this go live.
Oh, you had all your investors and stuff
everybody.
watching. Wow,
And we
nice.
are like launching this thing and we are saying, guys, AT&T is now counting back 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then the switch turned to Carbyne from this legacy platform. The legacy is dead, silent. And then Carbyne is like starting to ring. And it's like super exciting moment. And we knew at that time that first we have a product market fit. More importantly, we have a brand market fit. And now it's on us to deliver and execute and take this market.
I mean, were you a little bit like, just wait, like,
Yeah. I agree. But luckily, it's never happened to us. Like,
it's amazing.
one thing that I'm very proud of is like, we have a very, very strong tech team led by my co-founder, Alex Dizengoff. And we took a challenge that like is super scary. And this is why you don't see others doing
Yeah,
what
you guys
doing.
were too dumb to know how hard it was, right?
Exactly. And maybe, or, you know, people are asking me, would you start a business again today?
Yeah.
I said, if, you know, I don't know, like it's a hard question to answer.
That's why people who have more experience don't do these things. 'Cause
Exactly.
They're too smart. No, that's
Absolutely.
never going to work.
Yeah.
And this could be a dumb question, but like, what do they do with all the legacy equipment? That's a lot of investment stuck in closets and like in back rooms and everything else and copper wiring. And I mean, I think people will be amazed at how old some of these systems are that these agencies have.
First of all, they have additional free space. So they are cleaning the legacy stuff and literally dropping it to the garbage. And, you know, before Carbyne, it's server rooms and data centers that they need to maintain internally. And like the wires and everything is like, you know, it's like been there 35 years and everything is a mess. And suddenly they have a clean room, 2 routers, everything in the cloud. That's it.
Yeah.
It's an amazing experience. And it's the standard.
We had, told the story before. I was a chief operating officer in Seattle PD, and I had the communication center, which was the PSAP. And the chief and I lived in the same building, and every morning we'd go down together. We get coffee. Usually we go into the office. Now she would get calls that there was shootings, robberies, something bad at night. And Seattle's a relatively safe city, and we drove crime down.
Wait, what? Seattle's a safe city.
It was when we were there for sure.
Okay. Right.
My phone would ring more often during the night than hers would, because my phone would only ring, or I get a text message, if the comm center went down because we had a problem with CAD, and that would happen not every night, but she would always laugh like, well, how was your night last night? And I was like, well, I got 3 notifications that it went down. Like it was like crazy stuff. Like that's mission critical. That's how people call for help in their moment of need. Your technology goes down.
Yeah, I remember when I met with one of our investors, which is from Founders Fund, from the Peter Thiel team, Trey Stephens, that you know very well. And he told me and Alex when we met with him in San Francisco after they invested in the company, he said, when we deployed first Palantir, people didn't really know what to do with it and all that. So I think part of the thing that makes Carbyne so unique is our customer success, and we care about our customers. And it's not just like, everybody are saying it, but we really mean it. And like, we're going to overspend money and overstuff our customer success and operation team because we knew the change is not easy. And we want to be with those people because the directors are always the one that going out to the press releases and they're very proud of the new technology. But at the end of the day, you have a call taker that sits there at 2 a.m. and he's the one that needs to work with the platform. And if you want to invest in him like you invested in the director to convince him to go with you, it will never happen. And at the end of the day, the director can be as excited as he wants, but at the end, he needs his people to buy in to this new platform. So I think this is another thing that made Carbyne pretty unique, is the customer success and customer obsession that we had to make sure that the entire chain, from the director to the supervisor to the IT director to the call takers, etc., they're all getting the same love and attention, and we spend time with them to educate them what is the 21st century platform look like and what it can do for them.
Yeah, this is one of those things where it is so shockingly obvious and simple. And every company says, we're obsessed with the customer and all that. But it is shocking to me how many people don't get this right. And by the way, it's hard. It's not easy to get this right. You've got to really get your people and your culture right, where they're empowered. But that was when we were doing the due diligence. One of the things we were so impressed with Carbyne was like the customer feedback was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And again, I'm just always shocked to see so many companies that don't get this fundamental thing right.
I think, like, again, you need to say it and you need to mean it and you need to show it. Like, and then again, having a slogan in your website is a great thing, but you need to, walk the talk, and you need to, be able to deliver what you're saying you need to deliver. And like, you need to be humble, and you need to understand that you're not perfect, and you need to admit if sometimes you're making mistakes, and it's okay to make mistakes. We're not perfect. And I think, again, I'm lucky to have great people around me, and people that helped me to bring this company to where we are.
My dad, who's one of my mentors, who we've talked about on here a bit, taught me early in my career. He said, like, people can't expect you to be perfect, but they will expect you to be honest. And that really stuck with me. It's like, hey, if you just own it when you fuck up,
100%.
like, people respect you for that, and that builds relationships. And again, that's another thing. I'm just so shocked that so many companies get that wrong, where for whatever reason, people try to hide when something's gone wrong, and it just gets worse. And again, Dad had another famous saying. He's like, problems fester. They never get better if you hide them. You gotta, the sooner you surface it out in the light of the sun, then you deal with it. So again, I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah. And again, in our industry, like, you can invest and do so many things right, but one time that you fuck things up, then to correct this impression is very, very hard. So this is why we were always kind of over-investing in all our customer success and customer facing people.
So did you continue doing over the top stuff, or like once this rocket ship took off, was it all?
Yeah. So it's a great question. So the answer is we still maintain over the top platform for like rest of the world, but in the United States, we decided to not invest anymore in Universe. And actually now with the acquisition, it makes total sense because Prepare have such an advanced over-the-top platform and much more advanced than Carbyne. And as Rick said, like, Prepared is coming and delivering kind of a very wide range of capabilities. And we went very, very deep. So if you combine the two, this 1 + 1 = 5. And what I think that Axon did very well, unlike some other acquisitions in the space, some other companies are basically doing acquisitions and they're trying to buy a market share. But it's a legacy technology, but they're buying the market share. With Carbyne and Prepared, what is unique is that you have now 400 people with like the most advanced tools and AI and capabilities that are now going to redesign and reshape how we all think about 911. Mm-hmm. We're not going to create a new like dispatch platform with better UI. We are going to rethink how dispatch needs to work in this world. And the fact that people used to buy call taking and recording and dispatch and RMS and MDT, et cetera, doesn't mean that this is the most efficient way to respond from call to action to court. Yeah. And when we need to look at it holistically and reimagine how this new world with AI will look like. And it will look totally different from what we used to have in these days.
Rick is just looking at you with like love in his eyes.
I am. Well, I tell you, like, early on, I was just not a fan of doing acquisitions. I remember I went to University of Chicago for grad school, and Chicago is sort of famous for like efficient markets, and a lot of acquisitions end up being about egos, and they end up destroying more value than they create. And a lot of companies, especially the ones that are making financially driven decisions, they'll want to buy the company that's a cash cow. It's profitable, makes your numbers look better. But frankly, I think when you do that, you're buying tech debt, because by the time somebody is the incumbent market leader, they've been around long enough that if tech is changing, they're probably, the incumbents are rarely the tech leader. And so in each of our acquisitions to date, and I'm really just proud and excited how well our team has approached this, we focus on, okay, who are the up-and-comers that are probably not profitable yet? They're not going to make our numbers look better, but we want to find the guys who've figured out the future. And of course, now as we've gotten bigger, one thing we bring is channel scale. Yeah. And so that's what we were really excited about here. Like, we have some competitors who buy a lot of the market leaders and then they put their brand on their brochures, but it's really hard to rebuild an old technology and make it work well together. Mm-hmm. Whereas when you get these newer systems, like, they're built on a modern tech stack. I mean, frankly, we probably are more legacy than they are, just because, we've been doing cloud for 10 or 15 years now. And so it forces us to up our game.
I think what is interesting, and I was pitching that for so long, and I don't know if I told that to you, Rick, but like if you look at the history of Axon started all the way from the responder back to like they started from tasers to body cams to fleet to like fuses, etc. And now they're coming into like the 911. Carbyne started from the citizen call taking responder connect. It is like exactly meeting in the middle. And I think again, like I'm super excited about the discussions we had in the last couple of weeks, and I know that the way public safety works will be totally different. And again, one of the ways that I found like pretty interesting to speak with those directors about the change is like leave aside technology, talk about outcome and KPIs. As an example, call taking is like their main KPI is time to dispatch. And once we delivered like to one customer, and the customer is coming to us and says, hey, like we were missing this button and that button and this button. I said, just a second, leave aside the technology. How's the outcome? Are you responding faster to an event? Your time to dispatch went down. You can answer more calls in shorter time. The answer is yes or no. I said, of course, yes. So I said, we are not here to build a better legacy platform with a better UI. We are here to change the way you work and bring this innovation to you to improve your operational efficiency, maximize, the outcome, and save more lives. And this is what you need to look at. And when you change the discussion from feature parity, comparing like we have this feature to that feature, and you talk about an outcome and KPIs and how you make their life better, how you make them meeting NINA standards and all that, suddenly the whole discussion is different. They trust you to help them to meet what they need to meet. And then the discussion is not anymore about this button or that button, and we have that and we have that, because they all understand that we are the expert in technology, and we're going to help them to meet their goals.
Well, this is where like when we talk about being mission driven, I think this is such a fundamental difference, because people that are mission driven are really focused on like the big picture, what's the problem we're solving. Whereas I think a more traditional business where it's like, okay, financial analysis, where can we make money at? Then you end up, you don't have the passion for the problem you're solving. And you end up like, okay, well, what feature do we need to have to compete with company X? Whereas like the really mission driven people are like, what is the problem nobody has solved that we're going to go solve? And I think it's just a very fundamentally different approach, and it builds real value that's different and hard for, I'd say, more profit driven companies to replicate.
And I mean, I think it's also like what I heard, and as I've gotten to know you guys, is also it's a better experience for the citizen calling in. It's a better experience for the call taker and the dispatcher, which those are very hard jobs. And then it's a better experience to get more information to that responder out in the field. Like along that whole chain, you just improve
100%.
all those outcomes. And I mean, I had to call 911 a couple of weeks ago. Like there was a car accident when I was crossing the street. And so I go out there, and this woman had been T-boned. And so I first check on her, make sure, and then she was okay, airbags deployed, but it was a pretty, like it spun her around. And then so I call 911 after she's fine. I call 911. First, it bounces me because I'm on a border of another town to the other 911. Now they're like, please hold. And then it puts me back to the city that I'm in. And then the call, she was exasperated because I was probably about the 15th call by that point. But I'm the one sitting there with the victim. And all she cared about was to tell me that the help is on the way. And I'm like, okay, great. But like, and I could hear this, but I'm like, but I'm here with the victim. Is there anything you would like to know? And she just moved on to the next call. Like, and that was a frustrating experience for me, because you're like, I'm trying to calm the person down who was in this accident. She's asking me questions. I don't have any answers. And like, it's just in the click, and that was it.
Yeah.
It's over.
For sure. Again, like we are seeing it all over the place. And I think like, again, the way I pitch, Carbyne when we're coming to customers is like, let's look at the different stakeholders that are touching our technology. The citizen, let's say it's a foreign language speaker, and he speaks Russian, or he speaks Chinese, or he speaks whatever other language. With Carbyne, there is no language barrier anymore. And before Carbyne, they used to pay for a language line. It would cost $4 per minute, and roughly 10 to 20% of the call in every center in the United States is like foreign language speaker calls. If you look at 250 million calls a year, makes the multiples like $500 million spend on, kind of a language lines.
And also the delay. What did you say? I heard you give them.
Yeah, of course, 7 to 9 minutes when you need to bring an interpreter into the call. This is in the case that you can distinguish between Korean and Chinese and Japanese. Like, I don't know how many people in this room can distinguish between the different languages. And with AI, it's happening automatically. Location services, real-time video, like non-emergency triage, like what we discussed, and like the ability to deflect calls that are non-emergency to agents, and so many different capabilities. And again, the experience for callers, call takers, dispatchers, responders, all that is significantly different when you use modern tech like Carbyne and Prepared.
So the rocket ship that you're on takes off, is that 2024? Is that
2022 was the first big thing, and then like we started to grow like tremendously.
so? What were the next couple of years like? As you're, I mean, you're focused on the customer, we've got but like just sort of personally as a startup founder, and you built this team, you're learning, you're applying lessons you learned in the military. Like, what are those few years like?
So I remember that like sometimes, as a founder, like we talked about it, the difference between creators and managers. Like managers are, it's not. I think I'm a pretty good manager, but like I think I'm more creator than manager, and like because of that, I'm always looking for more exciting things to do. And like I was not very excited about like scaling like the company tremendously and all that. Like I was always looking to do additional like and different things. And I remember when we brought GMR to invest in Carbyne, and this is a 40,000 people company, 6.5 billion in revenue. And I told Ted, one of my board members, this is the time, let's go global with you guys. And he said, Amir, we have so much more to do in the United States, and that's like 40,000 people company, and we are the 200 people company, want to go and then capture the world. Yeah. The reason I'm mentioning that is that when we had this discussion, I realized that we need to focus, we need to execute, and we need to win the market in the United States. And this is why we took all the different like things that we had at the time, the over the top, etc., and some other ideas we had, and we were focusing on winning and bringing Carbyne to like an apex to be the leading platform in the space, which will prove itself to be like the right decision. So my focus since winning New Orleans was like literally traveling to all the different agencies across the country, going to conferences, and explaining why and educating like the different layers that we talked about, why Apex is the right choice. And again, I think it's proved to be the right decision.
And when did you, like along that journey, like when did you, know that you were going to exit, that there was going to be an acquisition? Like,
again, I don't think you're not planning an exit. But I think that if I look at the entire potential in the market,
I think of it as a rebirth rather than an exit.
I was trying to think of the right term to make it feel, to make Rick feel better.
And we can talk about like how this thing became like thing, because I think it's also an interesting story.
Well, I mean, Michael Chime told us that he was bitten by a spider. We were hoping it was radioactive. He's negotiating the acquisition while laying in a hospital bed, getting his leg cut off. So I hope you have as interesting of story as that about.
No, actually we like our story was a bit different. Like AI came into like the market, and you see legacy providers starting to do some innovation, because innovation becomes for everyone.
And when you say AI, you're talking about when ChatGPT really hits the market.
Exactly. Like now transcription, translation, and like agents. And you see the problem is that like you're selling to 911 and they trust you, and we are not the only trusted brand in the market, obviously. And when you go to every other competitor website, they're all talking the same things. And now innovation is for everyone, and innovation becomes commodity. And I can easily spin up kind of an over-the-top solution that will do transcription, translation, say, hey, I have it as well. And I realized that we either need to do a very big round and grow up and deliver more than just call taking. Because if we want to scale and we want to build a multi-billion-dollar business, this is what we need to do. Call taking will not be enough for that vision, because we want to do the entire end-to-end. And what I did is basically I said, we're going to raise 100 million. We're going to go to market. And I'm going to bring kind of bankers that will go to certain companies and say, hey, Carbyne is raising. And I knew Henrik and I knew Axon. And from all the different companies, I'm not saying it because I'm sitting in this room. I'm saying that like, if you look at the stock, if you look at the performance, if you look at the vision, if you look at the decks in the earning calls, it just looks different from others in the market. And if selfishly I'm look at Carbyne and our investors and where I believe we can do multiple kind of on the value that we're going to bring into Axon in the future, I think the combined value we got to our investors and the potential in the future was significantly higher and better with Axon than any other potential company. And when I look at the numbers, I know the market very well. I know what other can do with Carbyne. It just felt the right decision. So this is why we ended up here. And of course, I'm very happy.
How much
with
did
the outcome.
culture fit play a role for you?
I think that, and again, I remember you was in Japan. It was 7 a.m. We had a call, and it was Sunday morning. I said, "Why Rick is talking with me on site, and it's Sunday at 7 a.m. He don't have anything better to do." And
he doesn't. That's what he does.
Yeah, and he's like, and I remember that conversation. And I remember also I was sitting in a coffee shop in New York City under my house, and I told you, that you've built a very unique leadership team. And again, it's not because we're sitting here. I told that to you before, and before I knew that we're gonna sign with Axon. But the entire leadership that we met with, whether it's Josh and Brittany and Henrik and Salam, and again, all the people we interacted with were so different from anything else we saw before, which I think reflect to what is it to be part of Axon. And I really feel this is a big startup company and trying to embrace change and a lot of things that those are the reason you go for a startup company. And I think this was probably the number one reason for us, saying yes and excited like we are to join the Axon family.
Well, I think the thing about great founders and great is, there's a number of things that are very simple in concept and hard to execute. And you were asking how happy their customers are. The other thing I think is really important is how happy your people become. Because imagine you work at some other more traditional company and you're a salesperson and the customer's upset and your company is telling you, well, hey, you can't make it right. Here's this policy book, and you're kind of stuck. So then you end up bullshitting the customer because you don't have a solution for them. Where I know what you did with your team is you tell your team, hey, yeah, we've got some policies and shit, but just figure it out and make it right. And you don't put your people in losing situations. And I think that's a really underrated thing because people perform really well. I'm really excited about how well our people support the customer. And it turns out that's a natural human thing. They want to do a good job. You have to break that by having shitty policies and stuff. And when you're inflexible, you then put those people in situations where they can't be authentic and they can't do a job the right way they want to do it. And so again, I think that's just a natural fit when you find companies that are like that. And that's why, I really appreciate all the compliments about our people. I think that's it. And the other thing I learned in my career about way too late was you got to fire quickly. You hire slow and you fire fast. If you don't have a good culture fit, it sounds brutal, but you just got to get people out because things become cancerous quickly if you don't. And when you get great people and you give them the ability to do their best and be authentic,
100%.
It's magical.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're talking about great people, you're talking about your podcast co-host. Is that what comes to
Absolutely.
mind? Yeah.
Absolutely.
And one thing that I think makes unique, Rick, and how you think about acquisitions is probably very different how other CEOs think about acquisitions in terms of, and you've said this to the entire company, which is probably 5,000 people and 6,000 listening. Maybe talk about that, how you see, we made 2 acquisitions, brought these smaller companies into the I think this is a very unique view.
So for me, a little bit of it is selfish. I want to work with great people I'm excited to learn from on problems that we care about. And beyond that, everything else is sort of noise. Are these people that are going to make us better? Are they solving a problem? We saw, it was a year ago, we came out of a strategy session. I remember sitting with our team and we were watching what's happening in AI, and the insight here, it's holy Moses, AI is transforming everything. The 911 call space. That is so ripe. AI will play a huge role there. And of course, my first instinct was, let's go build it. And then luckily we have some people, some discipline on the team, hold on, let's go see who's out there. And we found these 2 fantastic companies that we're building. And so is it a problem we're excited about? For sure. And then we saw people doing a great job. And then we fell in love with the teams as well as we got to know them. And that is really important. Like, life is short to work with people you don't enjoy being around.
Yeah, like, and again, I think it's you talked about the moonshot as well, right? If you want to cut that, again, not necessarily by guns and all that, but like great 911 and bring the right forces to the right location at the right time will save lives,
Yeah.
right? So it's a kind of maybe a different moonshot in a certain extent, but like the overall mission of saving lives and bringing people the best technology to, for their most critical time in their life is very well aligned between 911 and what Axon did. And I think like the also Axon ecosystem will be much, much more effective once the minute someone calls to 911, this all ecosystems start to sync, right? You don't need to wait for a legacy CAD to put an incident and say, hey, now something happened, and you need to waste 2 minutes. 2 minutes in emergency can be the difference between life and death. And now with Carbyne and Prepare, the moment something hits the queue, automatically this thing is like showing it fuses and all the way to the entire Axon massive ecosystem, which will empower the moonshot mission and basically will enhance that to be, or all of us to get, faster to this mission.
Yeah, as I look at it, I think the most powerful force, well, maybe it's love, but if we get a little less hippie-ish, it's intelligence. Like, super intelligent people and organizations are just far more effective. And this was, as we're starting to see this come into focus, like a public safety agency, like, their job is to keep the community safe. If we can just help them do that better. And these are big, complicated organizations. They're government run, which means typically they don't adapt to change very well. And so each of these pieces, as it's coming into focus, and we saw this, it's like, man, we've got a great connection between our body cameras and the officers in the field, but there's this really broken connection to the public when they call in. It's like the telephone game. One person answers, they're typing frantically into a system, another person reads it. It was one of these obvious things. It was like, if we solve that problem, we're going to make the entire agency better, smarter, faster. And so that's just exciting. I think it's super critical. Bringing more intelligence into an organization is probably the single most important thing we can do to save lives.
Well, and you've also said a number of times, which this is what I also find very unique. Like, we didn't acquire these companies for us to make them become like us. Like, we acquired them to become like them.
Yeah, the youthful vitality and there's a certain amount of process that has to happen as you get bigger. But I fight it with every bone in my body because, like, that's how, like, there's a reason big companies act like big companies, and they generally become suckier over time. It sucks the passion out of people, and so I think these companies are rejuvenating for us. And, like, the world is changing so fast. If we put everybody into a rigid system of doing everything the same way, if the world changes, we're toast. Like, we need to have an ecosystem with different teams doing different things and innovating. And then when you see something working, you do more of that. But I don't think you want to standardize and try to run everything the same way. It's dangerous. The world's moving too fast. There's too much change. The things that worked yesterday aren't going to work tomorrow. And for me, this is really exciting. Like, early in my career, I kind of felt like I had to stand up and, like, be the boss and try to prove I'm, like, the smart guy in the room. And I've had a couple disasters where I've basically learned, no, I don't have to be. In fact, like, my job now is to find really smart people and then almost run interference to allow them to do what they need to do and just run some cover. And it's a really fun job. Watching guys like Amir execute is just phenomenal.
Well, I was watching today, as I mentioned,
I'm more like Yoda than Luke Skywalker in this story now.
Today, mentioned today we had a bunch of PSAP leaders at our headquarters, and we had Amir and his team and Michael and the Prepare team. I was just watching them on stage with their excitement, talking about reimagining 911 and things that you've been talking about here, and then what the future looks like. And just watching the passion that was up there on stage, it was motivating to me. Like, and I don't know the space as well as you guys. Obviously, you guys know it, but it was like, it's energizing for everybody around you to see that passion that of all these folks on the stage that are just wholly committed to this mission.
Yeah, I think, like, we've done so much to get to where we are now, to build the credibility, the trust, the relationships, and I think there's so much more to do.
Yeah.
And it's like, but I really believe, and after spending last week and seeing all the different products and so many other capability that Axon have that I'm not sure that like the people that were in the room today even knows and aware that those exist, right? There is so much opportunity, and I agree with you 100%, Rick, by providing agencies with what they need to solve their problems, all the rest will follow. So I think our goal now is to take this all amazing foundation we have between Carbyne, Prepared, Fuses, and Axon as a whole, with DFR and so many other things that are now becoming a reality for public safety, and create this operating system for the public safety of the 21st century. And I think there is no one better like equipped and positioned and passionate about that mission like this whole group that came together. And what amazing is that like we see this excitement coming from the industry as well. It's not just us pushing it. It's like the agencies are telling us like, okay, what next? And we created these like trusted brands that people wants to hear what next. And the directors are suddenly coming with Apple Watch. You know, they have ChatGPT. They use kind of like, they're not anymore this kind of old thinkers that like, hey, just have me with what I used to have. No, they want to embrace change. They want to push forward and want to bring greater outcomes for their community. And I think we are ready for that future.
Now, speaking of excitement, just last week, I think it was, I've seen Rick get really excited, probably more excited I've seen him in a while, because all of our offices have a sci-fi theme. And like Boston, one of our newest office that is Tron. Like they have to have a theme. Yeah. And I think,
well, and by the way, Boston, the backstory, Josh Isner wanted it to be a sports bar theme. Yeah. And I was like, we are not doing a sports bar theme. So the compromise was Tron. That's a sci-fi film with sports in it.
So Carbyne is based in New York. Prepared is based in New York City as well. You guys are going to build an office, and you revealed what the theme of that office will be last week. Do you want to tell us now what that is?
So Rick actually told me about it, so I was not aware until today.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So maybe you can talk about it.
No, well, Michael Chime in the Prepared team said it is going to be Batman.
Well, we need to make sure you guys are bought in.
Yeah, well, I thought they were.
I thought they were too.
No. We are, but like I don't have all the details about.
So Gotham. We're doing the Batman, which
Gotham.
I think is pretty awesome.
Yeah. I mean, he renamed this the Bat Cave. So when they told him that the New York City office of Carbyne and Prepare was going to be Gotham,
but I love it. Like Batman is our spirit hero, right? Like Superman, he's got these superpowers that are all kind of fakey, and you've got Tony Stark and Iron Man. This guy's a killer. He's like he's a arms dealer. Bruce Wayne is a good dude. Batman doesn't kill people. He goes out of his way with all these crazy tech that is all designed. So the Batarang and the Bat Cable and all this stuff to save people. And yet he gets beat up in the media. He's got this dark reputation unfairly. And I think Axon can relate to that. So I love they picked it.
I told you guys. Case in point, he gets excited about that. So
100%.
Well, Amir, I mean, looking, as we wrap up here, looking back, from growing up in Israel and your service in the military, I mean, can you believe this where you are now, and like that journey and sort of life lessons along the way?
Yeah, you told me when we were sitting outside that sometimes you need for a moment to look at the sunset and stop for a second and just realize what was the last 10 years was. So I think I'm realizing slowly, right? Like it's a very weird, feeling. I told it to Mike before, and I used to have investors and advisors and all my 250 people in the company, and I was the most important person in the room. And suddenly, things are changing. First of all, I enjoy this change, and I think it makes me or give me more time to think about like what is next now with Axon and how we can do more things together, like to take this all spaceship to the next to the next phase. And again, I'm super proud of myself, my founders, my team, and all the hard work, because startup is like ups and downs, and it's not only like happy going up. And you need a very strong team and team effort to be able to climb this mountain with all the forces trying to push you down. And really all the forces trying to push you down. So I think that, I think we should be very proud of what we have done. And I think we're leaving a legacy in this world, being the first ever 911 cloud call taking platform, and the only one that really believed in this mission, and the one that really did it. And like what Steve Jobs said, like only the crazy people in this world are like the one to think that they can change the world, are the ones who do. So I think we, in a small way, changed the world of bringing this 911 industry to the cloud, and it's something that I'm very proud of.
I think it's a pretty big change.
It is.
It's a pretty big
It
change.
is.
It's an important one.
Yeah.
Well, Amir, we're definitely going to have you back at some point.
Yeah.
As you continue to redefine the future of what 911 looks like. And I do like Michael Chime. Like, why do we even call it computer-aided dispatch? That sounds old. So, I know there are great things to come with your team and the Prepare team 100%. And the Axon team who've joined forces. And we'll have you back. But thank you for coming in and having this conversation with us.
Thanks for having me. That's great.
Awesome to have the privilege of working with you now.
Thanks, Amir.
Thanks.
Let's boldly go.